Hello and welcome to Unacademy. I welcome you all to this session, the Hindu analysis. For the past 2 days, there was some technical issue which did not allow us to go live. But today we are here live at 10 a.m. as always. And we'll be discussing 5 to 6, rather 8 articles, but there are 2 to 3 major articles which make it 5 to 6 very interesting articles for the examination. And over and above that, because the Bihar electoral roll issue and the FTA has happened, what I predicted yesterday, we have a very good mix of topics for today. Good morning and welcome. Now, remember that the 19999 offer plus 12 months extension is going to end very soon, and you have to use the code IAS English so as to be attributed to our team. Very, very important to use it to get the maximum discount possible. Now, I have uploaded the PPT of yesterday. I will upload it for today also. There was a delay, sorry for that. But within the next 2 hours, I'll upload the PPT for today, which is more important than yesterday, into this Telegram channel. Just have to subscribe to it. Now, let's talk about the topics, very interesting ones. First, these two topics are together, which is what is happening in Bihar, the SIR, which is the special intensive revision which is happening, and what is the impact of it. Thereafter, we have 4 articles. We have 4 articles which are related to the FTA, two or other three positive, one negative. So gives us enough fodder to write a good answer in the examination. And we have one with regards to China and the revision, a concept which we discussed yesterday, which is the visas which are being given to Chinese tourists now. And last but not the least, a rather alarming development from Lakshadweep, where the coral reefs are not reviving themselves. We'll talk about coral bleaching also. There were a good mix of topics from GS paper 2 to 3 to environment to polity to the concept of economics based understanding of the FTA also. Now, let's start our analysis by covering a text and context article. This you will not find in every newspaper, only in the Delhi edition and international edition, or a metropolitan edition. For example, in Bangalore edition, you'll not find it. This is text and context. And in this text and context article, there's a lot to decode here. I'll tell you how to go about it. See, there has been a affidavit which has been pushed by the Election Commission to the Supreme Court against a writ petition which was filed against the Election Commission for what they were doing in Bihar with regards to the intensive revision which is happening, which is called SIR, Special Intensive Revision, which had just recently started and is going to end on 1st August, first revision, and then 1st September. Now, the article has 3 parts. First is what is the legality of it? Why is it happening? Meaning what and why. And then there is a counter against the affidavit which was pushed in by the Election Commission into the Supreme Court. Meaning this part which you see here, this part, is not really relevant for you because this article is written by an activist. He is actually countering each and every point of the affidavit. We don't have to go with that because that is the Supreme Court to decide about the merits of the affidavit in that regard. But this allows us to understand 3 to 4 things. What is the mandate for electoral rolls? Does the Election Commission have the power to revise it? If yes, which act is it? Thereafter, what is the controversy around Aadhaar? And last but not the least, what is the impact? Impact, we have one more article which I will show you with the data which has been released by the Election Commission just yesterday. So, do understand one thing, it has a lot of data. However, we have to take out the areas which are relevant for the examination, what we can write in the newspaper, or what we can rather write in the, you can say, an answer about the electoral rolls in that regard. Cannot go into debunking each and every point of the affidavit. That is of no purpose to you. That is why not every article has everything for the examination. Certain parts are important, and that is what I'm trying to do here. I'm contextualizing everything together so as to create a coherent picture. Are we sorted with regards to this? I want a two-way interaction. You have to say yes. And first, I'll give you the larger picture. and then we'll go into the details, because the details are quite a lot. I would rather give you the main gist first so that you have a bird's eye view, and then we can talk about the concepts further. Yes, great. Now, what is happening right now as we speak in Bihar is called a special intensive revision, SIR. This is happening in Bihar, but the Election Commission has argued that we will do it for the whole country because there's a need for it. We'll discuss the need aspect. Now, this is a little bit ominous in that regard because Bihar has to go into elections in November, and just before it, a special intensive revision, that too in such a haste, is a little bit problematic when it comes from a political image in that. Now, let's try to understand what is the constitutional mandate and what is the right of the Election Commission over these concepts. Now, under Article 324 of the Indian Constitution, the Constitution argues that the power to prepare or have any, you can say, power to create a voters list is in the Election Commission. So the power to prepare a electoral roll is given by the, as per the article, via Article 324. Further, it says Article 326 argues that any citizen who is more than 18 years of age can be a voter. It generally says in the negative, which is not less than 18 years. However, when it comes to the nitty-gritties, of how the electoral roll has to be created, these two constitutional mandates create the context for what is called as the Representation of the People's Act 1950. Remember, it is 1950, not 51, because it is very categorically mentioned. It is 50, not 51, which gives the Election Commission the right to have a certain, you can say, process, which under this act is deemed via Article 16, Article 19, Article 20, and Article 21, not of the Constitution, but of the RPA Act. We'll call it RPA 1950. Now, under Article 16, it tells you how non-citizens cannot vote. Article 19 says a person who is ordinarily a resident plus 18 plus is deemed to be a voter. Further, 20 tells you what does this ordinarily resident concept means, and where it is argued that just having property in that constituency does not automatically make you an ordinary resident there. But what is in question right now is this Article 21. Article 21 of RPA 1950 argues or gives the power to revise the electoral roll periodically after stating the reasons to do so. After stating the reasons to do so. Very good, Anushka. Very well said. Now, under this concept, we now have the static portion in place, which is if the Election Commission is doing this, under what mandate is it doing? The mandate comes from the Constitution 324, from 326, and thereafter the RPA 1950, People Act 1950, under Article 16, 19, 20, and 21. 21 is being used by the Election Commission to do the SIR, which is Special Intensive Revision. I hope this point is clear, which is the basic bird's eye view of what is the constitutional mandate comes here. I'll add now the detail so that we can reinforce here again so that you remember it here itself. So, Election Commission has filed a certain affidavit against a writ petition which has gone to the Supreme Court, and it is a very lengthy document with 88 pages of explanation, but 625 pages of annexures where different political parties had argued that an SIR has become very, very necessary. Now, when it comes to the electoral roll itself, 324 mandates that, be it the state legislature or be it the parliament, the process of superintendence, direction, and control is under the election commission. 326 argues that any citizen not less than 18 years of age is entitled to be a voter. Again, repeating all these points so that it's a revision for you. Thereafter, it is the RP Act 1950, which is then used via Article 16, 19, 20, and 21. 16 says non citizens cannot be a part of the electoral roll. 19 says who can be a part of it, ordinarily resident of the constituency and 18 years of age and above. 20 tells you what it means to be having an ordinary resident, which is, it says that if you are having property or dwelling house in that constituency, that does not make you a ordinary resident. However, temporarily absent, meaning if you have migrated temporarily, that still lets you have the status of ordinary resident, which is, for example, if my constituency is in Delhi, if it is in Oscars, if I am not able to be there for 2 to 3 years, but I was registered there as a voter, and I'm not there for 2 to 3 years, I have not voted for at least one cycle, for example, that still does not take away my voting rights because I have only been temporarily absent. However, if there's a revision, I have permanently, you can say, migrated, that may lead me to be removed from the electoral roll. However, the question or whatever controversy is happening under Article 21, which is the EC can periodically revise the electoral roll. Is this part of the story clear to everyone? What is the constitutional mandate and what is, you can say, the RPA Act and its different aspects? Are these articles clear? And more than that, I hope you will remember them for the examination, which is the different. Yes, perfect. Okay. Now, now we know that Article 21 is being used of the RP Act 1950. Now the question is, why is it happening in the first place? Why Bihar? And why the EC is saying that there's a need for countrywide SIR, which is revision. Revision. Now, the Election Commission has quoted that because of urbanization, because of migration, there has been a need to revise because there is duplication. There are people who are dead, so there is the you can say dead people in the list. There's also permanent migration. Now, these things are standard. These things are standard, which is duplication or be it permanent migration, be it deceased people. It's a standard process. The standard process that you need to periodically revise. But one of the reasons which was quoted by the Election Commission was that political parties political parties are arguing are arguing but are arguing that a lot of illegal foreign non-citizens have been added over the years. And this is where again the concept of citizenship comes through, that illegal migrants, refugees have been added specifically in Bihar because of the Nepal border, and the, you can say, migration from Bangladesh. And therefore, the argument which was given by the election commission was, we are doing it at war footing, and we are doing it for Bihar because a lot of affidavits came through which said, and that too from political parties, that there is a need for illegal migrants to be removed from the electoral roll. Now, understand one thing very clearly. You have to give proof to the election commission that there is something like this. See, duplication is not a very big thing. In India, there are multiple. Some of you may be like that, where you have two election cards. Maybe because you are in a certain city right now and you got the, you can say, the voter ID card, but you also have it for your hometown. In multiple cases, you have seen this. It is like that, and therefore duplication is a legitimate reason, but duplication cannot be a reason to do a revision of an electoral roll just 4 months or 3 months before the elections. That creates chaos, that creates problems. And this is where election commission has argued that for 20 years, the last revision in Bihar happened in 2003. In 2003, the Bihar revision happened because it said that there was a law, and since 2003, there has been a lot of urbanization, a lot of, you can say, migration, which in turn has, in a way, warranted a change. However, the election commission argued that the political parties are saying that there's illegal migration also. Now, there is a very subtle difference in what happened in 2003 and what is happening in 2020. The subtle differentiation is, when in 2003, Bihar electoral roll was revised, and when there was the NSIR here, the election commission officials went door to door to check, be it the BLO, be it the BDO, at the lowest, the grassroots level, door to door campaign was there to check if that person is there in the house or not. Meaning, for example, I took it, but I've moved to Bangalore. Maybe I don't need to be electoral roll of Bihar now. However, this time they have added another layer, which has created even more controversy. And this is where the problem lies. See, the layer is, this time, if you have to be re-added to the electoral roll, you have to submit a form which is called the enumeration form. And this enumeration form, there's a cutoff. If you were part of the electoral roll before 2003, you don't need to give any proof other than the electoral roll itself. Firstly, I don't know how many of you, even me, we don't keep the electoral roll with us. We don't even have proof. We use that parchi which comes to us before the elections. We go and give the votes and then we come back. We don't keep a copy of the electoral roll. But the argument is, if your name was there as of 2003, you don't have to furnish anything. However, if you were added to the electoral roll after 2003, you now have to furnish an additional document as proof of date and birth of place along with parents' details. Now, in a standard protocol, if I ask you, give me a document which gives proof of identity, has your parents' name also, and has your date of birth, what is that document which you are going to give? If I today ask you right now, first document which comes to your mind, when I say date of birth also I need your father's name or mother's name also, and I need the fact that where do you live, your address also. That document which is universally accepted also, misused also. Yes, very good. Shri. You will automatically give me either Aadhaar card or in some cases ration card. In some cases, in India, either you furnish a ration card, but today, one of the most ubiquitous, the most common is Aadhaar. Now, what is interesting is, both of these documents have been invalidated by the election commission. The election commission is arguing, because there are too many fake ration card is not a valid document as filed in the affidavit. But what is more interesting is, Aadhaar obviously is not a document of citizenship. But Aadhaar has now been said it will not be accepted as a document. And this is where the real controversy lies. The argument that Aadhaar, see, Aadhaar itself says that it is not a proof of citizenship or a proof of birth. But with regards to the documents which they're asking for, the caste certificates, be it family registers or be it allotment certificates, a lot of people don't have that. And therefore, now there are a lot of people who only have one valid document which was told to them being the most important, is Aadhaar. And now the whole controversy comes back to the concept that if Aadhaar is not a valid proof, then automatically a lot of people who may be citizens are now automatically, in a way, excluded from the list. And the people, including the author, who are against this concept, they say that when you are added to the voters list and when you're getting the voter ID card, if under Form 6 you can give Aadhaar as proof of identity, then why can now they do not give cannot give the Aadhaar as proof of identity? Meaning, if Form 6, which is enrollment time, you accept Aadhaar, but thereafter you are not accepting Aadhaar, this creates a paradox. This creates a paradox because for inclusion, you want Aadhaar as proof of either residence or proof of identity. However, thereafter, you don't want it or you are not accepting it. And this is where the whole controversy lies, that with no Aadhaar, with no ration cards being accepted, and in most cases, rural countryside, people don't have a passport. Voter ID card itself is not a valid proof. So if I look at the larger concept, voter ID is not accepted because that is being actually revised. Aadhaar is not accepted because that is not proof of citizenship. Yes, it is exactly like the NRC. Thereafter, you are not allowing ration cards. You are not allowing this. You are not allowing this. You are not allowing this. Then what is left is passport, is caste certificates. In most cases, people don't have caste certificates, and therefore this argument that illegal migrants have been able to get Aadhaar, therefore Aadhaar should not be allowed. Aadhaar with undertaking should be allowed. The idea is that election commission has a point. Election commission has a point, and India, and as a citizen of this country, we know and we are indicated enough that Aadhaar is not proof of citizenship. But now you have created an impediment. You have created an impediment. Sure, mindset, you're right in that regard. But what is going to happen is, in this process, if no, illegitimate will be removed, legitimate will also be removed. The election commissioner rationale is fine. But when you look at the affidavit, as it turns out, the Supreme Court has been argued by the Election Commission that we were told by the political parties that there is duplication, there is non-deletion, there is exclusion of what we call as eligible voters over non-voters. But when they were asked, give us proof that there is illegal migrants also in the voters list, the political parties and neither the election commission was able to actually create any form of proof for that. Ration cards, their argument is, Siddharth, that there are too many ration cards which are fake. So the argument is that there is more people under the ration card scheme. There are more issued than what it should be. So see, the Supreme Court has to decide if it is correct or not. You and me don't have to. But you have to understand what is the problem here. The problem here is that if voter ID is not accepted, and let's be very honest, yes, the election commission is right. Yes, there are illegal migrants who may have got Aadhaar, but the question is, if you are a rural migrant who's migrating from city to rural countryside, you are a citizen of this country, but you don't have a voter ID, or you have a voter ID which is not accepted, you have an Aadhaar which is also not accepted, you have a ration card which is not accepted, then what is the solution? This is the question to you. Then what is the solution? Because if you are not going to allow all valid documentations which are most common to be allowed, then where do, so this only creates two things, right? It creates scope for corruption, it only creates confusion and red tapeism. And what is going to happen is the men and women who may have been part of the electoral, because they did not get any other document other than this in turn would lead to a certain exclusion. The birth certificates, as you know it, are a very urban thing. Not every birth in rural countryside is actually a institutional birth. And even if it is an institutional birth, the amount of scam and amount of corruption which is there at the birth certificate level is a separate issue altogether. If you are born after 2000, see, the problem is not this. Anybody who was added after 2003, additional documentation is problematic. Again, the validity of this argument and the illegality of this argument or legality of this argument is to be ascertained by the judiciary. You and me don't have to judge the election commission here. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to give you the holistic picture, which is what is this issue? The answer recently which has been given by the election commission to the Supreme Court is inadequate. It is inadequate because whatever they have argued for is something which is already, see, if this was done after the election, it would have made sense. Please understand the timing of this. This is a process which is necessary, sure. Article 21 says that. But 3 months before the election, this is where there's a problem. Now, if you want to see the impact, just yesterday, the Election Commission furnished the following details. I put it into a table, and close to 61 lakh names may be removed from the electoral roll, which is going to be published on 1st August. BLO and the BDOs, whatever representation they've got, this is the data. This is the data. I'll contextualize everything for you together in one slide, but look at the data very closely. Before the SIR was started, the total voters in Bihar, according to the last revision under 2003, was 7 crore 89 lakh 69,844. Now, as of yesterday, total number of enumeration forms which have come through are 7.21 crore. Means that 61 lakh voters, and 61 lakh votes are very big. 61 lakh voters are unaccounted for in this draft roll or will be removed for sure. Within that, 7 lakh still have to submit the form. And you understand, these 7 lakh votes are the people who do not have the valid documentation. 7 lakh votes is a lot of votes. It is believed that 21 lakh people are dead. I don't know if we can trust this document also, because death certificates again are a very problematic issue in the rural countryside, more than that in Bihar. Further, it has been argued that 31 lakh people have shifted from the state, therefore they are not ordinarily residents of the constituency itself. Further, 7 lakh people are enumerated in two places, doubling, and 1 lakh are untraceable. Therefore, 8 lakh people are still outside the purview of the electoral roll. They were previously a part of this and they are not now. Now, 8 lakh votes has the power to totally change the, you can say, vote share in a certain state. Now, we don't have to, as of right now, pass a judgment if SIR is right or wrong. SIR is the right of the election commission. But three things are turning out to be problematic. First is the timing. Second is the pace at which it is happening. And third is the impediments which have been created so as to create multiple layers of verification via documents which are not available to people within months. And this is where this article has its own trajectory where it is debunking each of the affidavit points. That is not our job. That is Supreme Court to decide. It's an activist, you can say, article. But I would now like to bring all of this information in one place, two articles together, and let's try to create an argument which we may be able to use either in the mains examination, or if somebody asks us, what is your opinion about the Bihar SIR, its timing and its process? Can I do that? Can I, in a way, bring everything together and we can create a coherent picture of what is to be learned here, what is to be remembered? But I have created this document in such a way, the PPT in such a way that you have all the arguments in place automatically. Yes, sir? Great. Okay. Now let's put everything in one place. Let's consolidate it. How do we consolidate? See, Bihar is going through an SIR, which is systematic intensive revision. Last happened in 2003, now happening in 2025. Now, SIR, what is the legality of it? What are the protocols here? Article 324, 326 gives the right to the election commission to determine who is a voter and to prepare the list. Thereafter, Representation of People Act 1950, Article 16, 19, 20, and 21 then further mandates the election commission to ascertain who is a non-voter, who is an ordinary resident, what is the procedure. But for us, what is the most important point is this. Under Article 21, the election commission has the right to conduct an SIR periodically. So is it an illegal concept? No. It is in the powers and the rights of the election commission to do so. Thereafter, the SIR which happened in 2003, no documentation was needed. It was a door-to-door campaign. However, 2015, 2003 previously, you don't need to furnish anything, meaning the last revision. But post 2003, you have to furnish documents within which ration cards, Aadhaar are not allowed along with the voter ID card because that is what is being revised. We are seeing that there's an exclusion error of close to 8 lakh people right now. And the revision will include 68 lakh people. Majority of them are either dead or have migrated outside of the state itself. Now the question is, these 8 lakh people, are they illegal migrants? There is no proof which has been furnished by the election commission to the Supreme Court. Is there a certain percentage which may be illegal migrants? Yes. But if they are part of the 2003 revision, how can we then ascertain that only after 2003 there is illegal migration? I hope you understand the, you can say, circular argument here. What if all illegal migrants had already been added to the electoral roll in 2003 itself? What if these 8 lakh people are actually the youth of that state who did not bother to create anything other than Aadhaar, who are either sitting in Delhi, who are either sitting in metropolitan cities and preparing for UPSC or preparing for some examination? The migration of youth 2003 onwards, the migration of youth to metropolitan cities is for examinations. Employment is an issue in India. So how do we, quantity we know, quality we don't. So the qualitative value of these 8 lakh people we don't know. Are they illegal migrants? Okay. Now, when we talk about the political parties gave representation within the what we call as election commission that an SIR is needed. Yes, an SIR is needed, but what is the questionable aspect here which only the Supreme Court can decide if it is a politically motivated move just before the election. First is the timing. Why is it happening just 3 months before the elections? Second is at the speed at which it is being done. And last but not the least is the documents which have been asked to be furnished are not documents which most, if you remember, recently the UPSC changed the form of the civil services examination. A lot of students were caught off guard because they did not have the creamy layer, so non-creamy layer certificate, NCB certificates, or even caste certificates, which are issued for OBC in multiple cases year on year. So, and it takes at least 21 days to 30 days to actually furnish something like that. Therefore, the documentation, either there should have been some form of pre or some form of awareness which should have been created that you don't need this, you need this. And the sacrosanctity of Aadhaar in urban spaces may be known as not as a document of citizenship, but for the rural countryside, it is a very sacrosanct document for which people pay bribes to be added into. Therefore, this is an ongoing concept, a sub judice concept. But I hope that you understand what is the, you can say, protocols here. What is the larger picture here? We will come back to this most probably in the next, you can say, week or so. As we near the you can say Bihar elections, there will be more and more articles on this. But I hope that I have created such a picture where you understand what is happening. Because UPSC can ask you a question like this, which is the what discuss the constitutional mandate around the revision of electoral laws. Is Aadhaar a valid document for citizenship? Will you be able to answer this question now with the information which has been given to you? Yes. Solution, Maverick, don't try to give it right. Because as it is, you have to write this later. By that time, there would be a solution. Way forward is awareness. Way forward is to find a middle ground here, not having this highway or the my way approach that you have to get this documentation. The benefit of the doubt has to be given to the voter, and there are other ways to also ascertain illegal migrants in that regard. That is where let the Supreme Court first decide if the SIR will stand or not, because a writ petition directly says that this is an illegal revision happening over illegal understanding. There are multiple points about that. Let us wait for the Supreme Court to decide, right? Observe the SIA exercise caters to the constraints of migrant. Can we suggest a switch? See, Manisha, that is true. But today, if I ask you transfer your voter ID from A city to B city, it is a very big hassle in itself. See, the precarity, or you can say the precarious nature of the existence of a migrant, and because Bihar is supplying labor to across the Indian landscape in that regard, you'll find Bihar labor in Punjab, you'll find it in Karnataka, you'll find it in Tamil Nadu, you'll find it in Maharashtra. The point is that it is very difficult to shift documentation, and there may be somebody. Imagine this point: in this 8 lakh, there may be people who are right now sitting in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, or in Punjab, who cannot reach their constituency and fill this form. And that may be money constraints, mobility constraints. Maybe in this 8 lakhs, 7 lakh are illegal migrants. But 1 lakh people are getting disenfranchised. Is that justified? Is that justified? Where they are not given ample amount of time also. In May, they were told that the SIR is going to. November, the elections itself. So let us not discount the fact that there would be people who are eligible to vote, be it 0.1% of. Still, being a part of democracy is the part of having the right to vote. So this 0.1%, maybe out of this 8 lakh, they are getting disenfranchised. That is not a good thing. That is the point I'm trying to make. That timing, process, could have been done better. Election Commission has is in its right to do it, but the timing is problem. Are we clear about this topic? Clear, everyone? Because the next topic is also four articles together. Are we clear about this? Come on. That has its own cost mindset. That has its own costs. Very big cost. Elections in Bihar is going to be a very difficult and a very, you can say, a process which needs a lot of manpower, and even the money involved is very big. It's not an exam date which can be pushed further. Okay, it will happen in phases. Bihar is a contested state. Okay, now the next articles, four articles, deal with what is called as the India United Kingdom CET. It's a word for FTA, Free Trade Agreement, where tariff barriers are removed. CETA, the full form of this is Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement. Now I will tell you right now itself that next 3 to 4 days there will be a lot of articles about. Today itself we had three articles as news, one editorial. I'm bringing everything together to create again a coherent picture. Now when we talk about CETA, this has been again in the brewing up, has been brewing up for now close to 4 to 5 months. And there's a lot to be unpacked here. UK after Brexit has been desperate to, and one of the reasons to come out of the EU for United Kingdom was to have bilateral agreements with different countries, which would allow it to have good deals, which EU would not have allowed because EU rules would have then be used by the UK in that regard. And therefore, one of the biggest arguments was that we will create bilateral understanding. Now, in this relationship, India will or should gain more than the UK when it comes to CETA itself. Now, when we talk about the signing of this, very ceremonially done just yesterday, the Prime Minister has argued that this will benefit the farmers, the MSME sector, Indian footwear and jewelry sector, and at the same point of time, will allow British medicine, medical devices, aerospace, and you can say cars and heavy engineering goods to come into India at a cheaper cost. You must have seen a lot of reels which have been going on in Insta or in on YouTube, that what's the point of buying a Rolls Royce? Sorry, for what's the point of buying a Range Rover or a Land Rover now, because it will be cut down by 10% to this percent and it will become cheaper. So every Range Rover owner is now crying that my car was for 1 crore, now it is for 80 lakhs. All of that, the premise is this only. The premise is that the duty and the tariffs which were pushed on to British cars being imported into India has been reduced. Now, what we need to do here is we have to understand both the positives and the negatives of this. Meaning, who gains what and what is the, you can say, net outcome out of this. Now, for this, we have two different articles. One which talks about the two sectors which are going to gain the most, which is engineering and textile for India. And export growth may go up by 20%, specifically in agriculture. Now, let's contextualize this by looking at the tariffs which have been revised. So, the list of things where India has reduced tariffs is lower, meaning India has removed tariffs, and what is going to become cheaper is whiskey from 150% to most probably 70% and to 40%. Automobile from 110% to 10%. This is where Jaguar, Range Rover, again though owned by Range Rover owned by Tata only. But the idea is any car which was imported from the UK is now going to be cheap. Thereafter, electrical machinery, aerospace. One thing which is good is that because Rolls-Royce makes it the engines for both Boeing and for Airbus, engine, engine technology, you don't have to remember this data. Engine technology and basically the aerospace engines are going to become cheaper when it is imported into India. And therefore, aerospace and electrical machinery, what is believed is from a net 5-15%, it will become 3%. Don't learn this data, just giving you a picture. But if you look at the list for which the British have reduced the tariff, it reminds me of colonial India also, because we were the most taxed in that regard. Any export from India to Britain was was taxed the most, because the industrial powers used to fear the Indian, you can say, muslin and textiles. But it is a major reduction. For example, from 70% to 4%, more or less, be it footwear, be it animal products, be it marine products, be it electrical, be it textiles, be it wood paper, be it rubber, jewelry, furniture, it has more or less become net zero. So there is a major reduction on the British side for Indian goods. That is why we were very excited to do this FTA. There are other, all you can say, safeguards also in EV, in vehicle, and in protection strategies. We have also pushed in a lot of protectionist concepts. But the argument which the newspaper is making, or all the experts are making, is for the UK from 15% to 3%. It will allow the UK to at least push more and more, you can say, machinery and heavy electronics and automobiles into the Indian sector, including whiskies. And for India, three sectors are going to gain the most. First, agriculture. However, we did make sure that there is no access to the dairy sector, apples, oats, and edible oils. These are sensitive sectors where India is vulnerable. So we said we will not reduce tariff here. However, how does agriculture benefit? Previously, in our 36 billion export, agriculture export, only 811 million used to go to the UK. Now, with duty free access, there is a chance that there can be a 20% rise in this. Further, in textile and engineering, the micro, small, and medium scale enterprises can now enter the British market and dominate it. Therefore, the elimination of the tariff will allow for India to compete better with the Bangladeshi and the Cambodian textile. And India has a lot of scope to supply engineering goods and to supply export of textiles. So do understand one thing: textile, engineering, and agriculture are the three places where we are expecting major jumps in that regard. So, when we talk about the positives, before we go into the negatives, what are the positives of this deal? What are the positives of this deal? The CETA, or the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement, will allow for agriculture exports up, allow for textile to compete better in the global market within the UK market itself, and will allow for the engineering goods to be exported to the British sector. At the same point of time, for the British, their whiskies, their automobiles, and their heavy electronics, specifically aerospace, will increase in India. It's a win-win situation. It's a win-win situation. Do we understand the CETA and the positives which are linked to it? Do we? Then I will go into the negative, because the editorial is about the negatives of the CETA. Vedha. Are we clear about this? Yes, sir. Very good. Okay. Now let's talk about the negative. This is where there's an article which argues that the CETA is going to be a issue for public health in India. Now, again, let me give you the gist of the argument, and then we'll go into the basic contours of what they're arguing. What they argue, what they argue is With the trade barriers being removed and with better access of the British into the Indian market from 15% to 3%, what was not allowed within the British food industry? Food industry, jet engine technology, we may share, but at least bringing the jet engine is going to be cheap. Technology share is not based off this. Now, what he's arguing is that with no tariff barriers, high fat, sugar, and salt, together called as the HFSS, high fat, sugar, and salt based food items of the UK can now flood the Indian market. Now, nutrition in India is already a problematic aspect because obesity, lifestyle based diseases, heart issues, be it cancer or be it the concept of obesity itself, it is now becoming a pandemic scale understanding in India. And the argument which this article makes, though a trivial one but of important, is in the UK there's a lot of regulations under which the packaging of the food item has what is called as this red light concept, which is if it is green, it means it has low fat. If it is amber, it means it has medium fat and sugar and salt. If it has red labeling, it is high fat, high sugar, high salt. This is a very standard labeling process which is used in the UK. Very high, stringent, you can say, regulations. Even you cannot advertise in the newspaper or online about these HFSs. However, in the Indian market, we don't have it because it's self regulated. And therefore, what the argument of this article is, with this development, if the Indian food market is flooded by UK based HFSS, which are where in India we have much more lenient regulation, there will be a impact on the health of the Indian or on the health of children specifically. And this is where it is for citing a Mexican example. When Mexico had signed an FTA with which is called the North American Free Trade Agreement with the US, Mexico was flooded by very high fat, sugar, and salt content based, you can say, food items from the US into Mexico. And in Mexico, there was an exponential growth in obesity, an exponential growth in heart based diseases and deaths. Therefore, they're arguing is that FTAs can have also public health impact. So, their argument revolves around this aspect that with lower tariff, lower prices, the HFSS will flood the Indian market, increasing the long-term health risks, and this will have a bigger impact on the health of our citizens. And because in the UK you cannot advertise, there's a lot of regulations, there's a lot of, you can say, uh, regulations which control these type of high sugar, high salt, high fat content based foods. In India it is an open, because with lack of restrictions on junk food, mostly also supplied into canteens of schools, there will be a chance where Lancet has already argued that India is facing a mini crisis because there is a very exponential increase in health based understandings of heart and obesity. Therefore, the alarming rate at which we are seeing obesity increase and also heart based diseases increase, this is a need that, or there is that rather, there's a need to make sure that this does not become a health crisis. So, the argument of the article is only very simple and straightforward. The argument is we need to be wary and we need to regulate the HFSS before they flood the market. Like we have created so many impediments in the petroleum or EV strategy, when we can have multiple riders, we should have riders over the high fat, sugar and salt based food. This is the basic argument here. We should not become another Mexico, and we should not be caught in this larger concept of what we call as the downsides of this whole CET. Now, if this made sense, will you be able to write the answer for this question? The UK India Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement has both its upsides and downsides. Elucidate. Upsides are more, downside is one. You can do that. Whatever discussion we've had in the past 1 hour, you can easily put this onto paper. The two questions which we had to discuss. I told you there are total 8 to 9 articles, but four have been clubbed together to create a coherent picture. The first two about Bihar and electoral politics. Second, the next four related to the CETA and how there are positives. Beautiful, perfect. Now, let's move on to the last two. Simple, straightforward. The first one is majority of consumers are unaware and they don't have. Yes, we that is true. That is true. In India, the awareness with regards to how food items have to be used, we still are becoming more and more conscious. One of the issues in very healthy food is its cost. Its cost. So it is very easy to get a sugary drink for 10 to 20 rupees than to get a healthy alternative, which is for 80 to 90 rupees. So one is awareness, the other is purchasing power also. We have made health a luxury item as of right. This is one of the biggest issues which we face today. It is a luxury to be healthy. Organic food is more expensive. Organic labeled, you can say, if you buy chips which are made out of beetroot, they would be for 100 rupees. So in India, we need a perceptional issue change also, but we need a regime change also, where we need to incentivize healthy food. So the idea is very simple. There is now a chance for new actors to enter and flood the market with advertisements. And we still have a colonial mentality. If imagine we have Lays, we have these different other actors, but now there's a British actor which enters. And thereafter, it starts to advertise that without actually revealing, advertise it as a healthy product also. Then what we will do? The point is, it creates a potential space for misuse. We have to close it, we have to lock it. That is the only thing which the article is arguing. Now, if you remember yesterday, I had pointed out and I had told you that the Indian embassy in Beijing is now going to give visas to Chinese to become to what is called as tourist visas to visit India. Now, this article editorial rather is not that substantial, but has two to three very simple points to make. What it says is that this slow revival is good. Be it tourist visa, most probably journalist visas will also be given. Thereafter, direct flights are going to be revived between Beijing and India. It is being argued that the more we are engaging, there is going to be economic cooperation also. Trump, his tariff wars may also have an effect on this. BRICS SCO also may have a certain, you can say, impact on how South-South cooperation is considered to be better. However, the first part of yes, the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra being allowed, pilgrimage being allowed, is also very significant as given here. So there is cooperation. But this article in this part says two things. It says that all this revival is good. It is needed, sure. But what is still lacking is trust, meaning it is superficial. Why? Because neither India or China, specifically China, they are still not taking into consideration that it was the LAC which was the problem. So the LAC issue has not been fully resolved. The PLA's aggression on the LAC has not been resolved. It is just that there is a muted, you can say, artificial diplomatic revivalism of the relationship, which is also needed. But the core issue remains, which means that all of this can be undone in one act. So the argument of the article is India needs to engage with China on these hard hitting issues so as to create trust and long term, can say, concrete relationship rather than a relationship which is based on the superficial concept. This is the argument of this article. Nothing out of the box, but a reminder that let's not forget why we were in that position for the past 5 years. And trusting China itself is problematic. So the article wants to argue that Tibet still remains an issue. India's support for Dalai Lama and how he is still in exile in India is still remains an issue. Arunachal Pradesh and the Chinese transgression still remain an issue. The LAC, its exact location still remains an issue. The PLA's aggression on the LAC and its push to move the LAC still remains an issue, and we are still not ready to engage on that. So in the larger scheme of things, we need to do something about that. Engagement should also be on hard hitting issues so that there is a systematic or what you call a systemic change than just superficial. I hope you can use this argument somewhere good enough for us. Now, the last article, LAC's line of actual control, non-recognized internationally, unlike the LOC line of control, which is via ceasefire agreement. LAC is a line which India and China only agree to. That is why they can push those lines, not internationally agreed to, because of the 61-62 war. Now, the last article is a little bit of a problematic one if we look at it from the perspective of environment. What we've seen, what we've seen, Maverick, you have to, for 2027, 26, all this is relevant because it creates a certain understanding which is long term. So you should be a part of this. So a 24-year survey has revealed that the coral cover in Lakshadweep has reduced by 50%, which is not a good thing. And the revival rate has also gone down. Now, first, let's understand what is this relationship, symbiotic relationship in a coral. And one of the most, it is the rainforests of the ocean in that regard. See, a healthy coral is when the coral and the algae are together. Zooxanthellae and coral have a symbiotic relationship. The algae gets a space to stay, and the color and the process of the, you can say, the relationship is based on symbiotic because algae produces food which the coral uses, and it gets a space to. It's a mutual relationship based on, you can say, positive symbiotic. That so coral gives space, algae gives the color and also the food which the coral uses. It's symbiotic relation. Yes. However, if the temperature increases, if there is pollution, if there is overexposure of sunlight because of the depth of the water changing, and if there are extreme low tides, the algae is under stress and it leaves the coral. And therefore, this is called coral bleaching. Why? Because when the algae leaves the coral, what is left is just the coral itself, which is pale white color without the algae giving its color itself. So it's bleaching because the algae, the symbiotic relationship has been broken. And in most cases, climate change, water pollution, and sea level rise or indiscriminate urbanization around the coastal sectors, specifically in these very sensitive eco zones, has led to coral bleaching. Now, what is dangerous is in the Lakshadweep sector, a study which has been done over 24 years in the atolls of Agati, Kadmat, and Karavati, they have argued that in different El Nino cycles, be it 1998, 2010, or 2016, there because El Nino would need to the warming of the oceans itself. This had led to coral bleaching, but the coral used to revive back. But since 1998 to 2025, over the past 24 years, coral cover has declined from 37% to 19%, which is 50% reduction in a very eco-sensitive zone. And further, the revival rate, we have seen that there has been bleaching previously, but bleaching with non-bleaching years used to lead to revival. The reduced revival rate means that this is a permanent change. So, this article holds significance for two purposes: coral bleaching, ocean climate change impact, water pollution. These are topics which are always in the news. However, we did not have an example in the context of India. Everybody used to talk about the concept of the Great Barrier Reef. But now we have an example that in India there is reduced rate of recovery and there is irreversible damage of 50% in one of the most important atolls in India itself. Therefore, you should add this article into your environment notes so that you now have a very good example to give either in the introduction or the conclusion. Got it, everyone? So, what have we understood in the past 1 hour, 6 minutes? We've understood article. Now I'm revising with you. Revise with me. 324, 326, RP Act 1950, 16, 19, 20, 21, 2003, and the concept that there is SIR. This is what we learned first. Then we learned CETA, positive, 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 which is agriculture, textile, and engineering. And negative, what we've learned is what? The concept of high fat, sugar, and salt. Thereafter, we've also understood that there's a lack of trust. And last but not the least, 50% reduction in the coral cover in Lakshadweep. Got it, everyone? Clear? Yes. If the facts which are written on this slide are sorted to you, you don't even have to revise in that regard. Manisha, don't go through each and every PDF of the Hindu analysis. What you should do is, don't take 5 hours. In 1 hour, you should look at the theme. In today, I'm teaching something. Maybe Chetan sir will teach something tomorrow. Then Sham sir will teach something else. Then again, I will teach it. But there will be some articles which are repeating themselves. Those articles you should read together, and you should be able to don't put so much time in revising the PDFs of the Hindu analysis. What you should be doing is you should be creating a repository, an index in which you are noting what is happening. A topic which is repeating itself over a long period of time is more important than a one standoff or one off article. And if there is some article which has basic data, just keep it and note it down and keep it. What you have to do is you have to enrich your static with the content which I'm giving you in this session. Right? So just make sure that when I'm talking about the what we call as coral bleaching, add it to your notes. That's it. Don't try to, as it is the exam is not right now, you should be able to create a repository of information which you can learn before the examination. It's about condensing rather than learning right now. Right? Okay. I hope that makes sense, Anisha. Perfect. Thank you so much. Take care.